I was about 18 or 19. Then I went to Walker College in Jasper and met two very important people there. One was Jim Dora. He was my music teacher, taught me the first formal theory I'd ever had about music, and the first real good listen I got at another type of music other than rock and roll, to speak, you know, or pop music. And so we would learn that type music. He would drill me with it. He'd get on to me. He was very hard on me. And I think it paid off in the long run, you know. Discipline. It's the first time I ever really learned discipline in music. Then I met another young man named Mark Phillips up there. And the thing about Mark and I was, not only was he talented, he just further pursued my personal interest because we both had a direction that we kind of wanted to take. We were very interested in the same type of things. He was a great keyboard player, a great vocalist, one of the most talented people I've ever worked with. And we just kept that curiosity.
Where are your interests as far as music is concerned? Not only the type of music you're doing, but what do you listen to when you go home to listen to something? What do you listen to?
I'll listen to anything that I feel that is good music. In other words, I can go home and I can put on Aaron Copland, which I'm a tremendous fan of, and then I'll go home and I'll put on a Steely Dan record, or go so far as to, you know, Emmylou Harris or something to that effect, you know. I'm very much into jazz. Like I said, just anything that's good. I'm a record collector, so I constantly fill my ears with all kinds of music.
Because of that, do you ever get to the point where you just don't want to hear anymore for a while, have to get away from it?
Very rarely do I want to very rarely do I get to the point where I don't want to hear any music. I get to the point where I don't want to play any music because there's sometimes where we work so much that I have to have a break from playing and performing.
It's real hard to budget your time because it's not a consistent thing. It's not like you work 5 days and you're off to like a regular 9 to 5. It's not like you go to bed at 11 every night and get up at 9. You know, it's always different, and it works differently different times of the year depending on what the band is doing. Like now we're involved in the third album, so now everybody's putting in work toward that, along with rehearsing with the band, along with playing. And once the album's finished, then we're going to be working on presenting that material to a live audience more than writing songs. In other words, the writing will lay off a little bit for a while, which is not necessarily good, but you know, you just have to take first things first, you know, and sometimes certain things take priority, and other times those take the back seat, so it's really hard to say. There's no consistency involved in it, really.
What about the road work? You probably aren't doing it with this band. I'm sure there were times at 3 o'clock in the morning you were at Zippy March eating cold spaghetti out of cans.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it.
How has that changed?
Not very much, you know. I mean, still at 3 o'clock in the morning we make a Zippy Mart stop, you know, or something, to get a late night sandwich or, you know, some kind of cold drink and a Stewart sandwich or something, you know. You put it in the microwave kind of thing. It really hasn't changed very much at all, you know.
Your green eyes, with a show white like stars in the sky. My guiding light.
Lee Bargerone is the newest member of the On Stage Hotel. However, before joining the group as a musician, Lee worked behind the scenes as a sound man.
It was a change. In high school, I had been in different, you know, garage bands and high school bands, so I'd played before on stage. And then I got into the sound aspect, working in recording studio and then running live sound for the band, and started writing with Mark around the time that we were working on the first album, or just starting to get into recording. And at that time it was suggested that an extra member be added to take up
some of the parts that were on record that 5 people couldn't reproduce on stage. And I was suggested and jumped at it.
How much writing do you do, both with the group and just as a catharsis for you?
It varies. Lately, I've been in pretty much of a dry spell. Sometimes you get to where you can knock songs out in a matter of minutes or a matter of days, and sometimes it takes months just for one song. You know, it just, I don't know. We've been under a tremendous amount of pressure lately as far as just working and performing and keeping the money coming in, and that has a tendency, when you worry so much about business, it has a tendency to, your creativeness kind of goes to a lull, so to speak.
How do you prevent that from happening, or once you see that's happening, how do you get back to the creative side?
You really...
Are there warning signs?
Well, there's warning signs when you sit down at the piano and nothing comes out, and then you go back the next day and you sit down at the piano and nothing comes out, and you go back the next day and the same thing happens day after day. Then you say, this is terrible, you have to do something about it. But eventually it comes, you know. I mean, when writing is something that you can't wait for inspiration. If you do, then you may wind up writing 1 or 2 songs a year, you know. And some people are constantly inspired. I'm not. I have to work at it and sometimes force things out that in turn are lousy songs or bad music, and then I'll can and just throw away, but it leads to other things, you know. Once you get yourself back into the groove of writing, then it leads to other things, and you start coming out with material.
When we write material with your current guidelines for hit formula, you can meet those guidelines, and a lot of talented writers do, I think. And not saying that we are or aren't talented writers, but you have a form, a basic form that you have to follow, and you have to meet those guidelines. It's like a verse, maybe another verse, what in general people call as a hook. Now this is a commercial writing, and another verse, possibly a bridge, hook out, whatever, solo. And so when we write with these things in mind, like when record company or whoever's on your back say, do this, we can do it. Sure, anybody can do it. But there's a quality to being a little bit different, a little bit unique, to using 2 or 3 chords just a little bit different, altering them, making them different, making them work, just a slight turn. And we can't do these things as fast. Things begin to sound like other things. Or what we do begins to sound like something we're doing just over and over again. And when we have our own creative time, we work just as hard, but we look more for content. Mark and I do start more now with a content situation than we used to.
Your Love Again is a song about my mother and father's divorce. And basically the song is a song to them, and it really states that all is not over. The world doesn't end when a relationship falls apart. And the line of, it's like right at your door, I'm speaking myself, that if you have no one else to love, I'm here. You can love me. I'm your son, you're my mother, you're my father. You know, all is not over, you know. I mean, that's basically what it's about.
Times are hard when you're so all alone. Still you live your life from day to day, and you know it's no good. So you fold up all of the future plans, throw your past in your bag and move away. I don't want to see you run no more. I don't want to hear you cry again. You don't need to waste your days no more. You don't need to look for it anymore. his heart knew it was no good. So he decided to make some plans. He laid his life on the line, moved away. I don't want to see him run no more. I don't want to hear him cry again. He don't need to waste his days no more. He don't need to look for it anymore. Silent his door. You'll love again. Love again. You'll love again. You'll love again. Oh, you'll love again. Yes, you will. Oh, you'll love again. I don't want to see you run no more. I don't want to hear you cry again. You don't need to waste your days no more. You don't need to look for it no more. I don't want to see you run no more. I don't want to hear you cry again. You don't need to waste your days no more. You don't need to look for it anymore. I don't want to see you run no more. I don't want to hear you cry again. You don't need to waste your days no more. You don't need to look for it anymore. I don't want to see you run no more. I don't want to hear you cry again. You don't need to waste your days no more. You don't need to look for it anymore.
What's the worst job you've ever had with this band? You don't have to mention any names.
Oh, God. I'm trying to think. We've had so many. We've had so many bad jobs.
I mean, one that was so bad it just turned into a joke.
Yeah, I would think one time when we were down on the coast down in Mississippi. I won't mention any city or anything like that, but we were told that this place was a very happening club, and we were really looking forward to go down on the beach and, down there. And we got down there, and I think we drove about 8 miles out into the woods, and there stood this Butler building, this aluminum siding building. There were no signs out front. And we got there, and the place was just a disaster, I mean, it was just incredible. I think we may have had like 100 people. We didn't even have that. We probably had about 50 people show up. We didn't get paid for the job. The guy told me, I can remember the guy telling me he was going to pay us the following night because he was going to take all the money out of the games and the pool tables and stuff to pay us. The next morning we got there, and there had been this mysterious robbery, and all the games had been robbed, So, I mean, it was just like a joke.
You come off the quiet person in the group. Is that true? How true is that?
That tends to be pretty true up to a certain point. It depends on if we've been drinking a lot or something.
What's the most embarrassing part for you on stage so far?
I guess the most embarrassing thing was this tune we do, Right on Time. And there's an opening drum lick. And for some reason or other, I built up a mental block on it.
And it's not right on time, right?
Right, exactly. And I guess for about a month, I was muffing that lick every time we did it. And I'd go and sound check and sit there and practice it perfect every time. But when it was in front of people and the pressure was on, I was choking.
What's it like playing with a guy that keeps muffing a drum lick like that?
Well, I'm a pretty understanding fella, and I knew it was just something that would pass, because that happens to everybody. I've never met a musician that doesn't have a mental block against something at some time or another.
If somebody came up with a silver platter and you could take a choice, what would it be?
just to be very successful and still be artistic at the same time.
Yeah.
What constitutes very successful?
Lots of things. One thing is money, of course. You know, everybody wants to make money. I would like one day for Hotel to set a trend, you know, an artistic trend, more than trying to follow in a vein. That's what I would hope for.
I don't care. I would be happy to have a middle-class living as far as money is concerned. Get that statement out of the way. A middle-class living. You know, not filthy rich, but to record, to make material, and not stale out, you know, through a lifetime, to give people something that they can hold on to and still play good when I get 80.